For a nice special.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
May go to your cloud though on your,
Yeah, I'll share the link with you or the
okay.
file. So just give me the okay when you're ready.
Go right ahead.
Okay, great. All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Aiden. I run a website. It's called pressurecookerpassion.com. This is it. I'm going to be doing a soup program for you this evening. If you own an Instant Pot, you probably know that soups are one of the best things you can make in it. Really easy. Definitely takes a lot of time off of some of those more complicated soups or those soups that have longer cooking times because you're pressure cooking them. It's also a nice alternative to the crock pot. If you don't want to let it sit all day, you can always get the same effect using your Instant Pot. So I tried to pick 3 soups that were, a little bit seasonal. One that's a little bit to showcase what the Instant Pot can do with its expedited cook times, and then the other one is just kind of a classic that I really like. So we have an Instant Pot chicken and rice soup. I will also tell you if you want to turn this into a chicken noodle soup, I'll let you know how to do that. We also have a butternut squash soup, which is really great, especially this time of year. It's kind of like a cup of fall, all heated up and it tastes great. And then we also have a black bean soup, which is a really good way to incorporate some beans into your diet. If you're not getting enough, it's a nice vegetarian vegan soup. It also, you could use dried beans, which I know a lot of times we don't always have the time to make, but in the Instant Pot, it definitely can be done in a reasonably quick manner. All right, so we're going to start with the chicken and rice soup. I did include the links in the chat here. I think they were also emailed out by the libraries beforehand, but just to run through it, our ingredients, we're going to be using about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to be using 1 small yellow onion that I've chopped. We're going to be using 3 medium carrots. Those are going to be peeled and chopped as well. 3 stalks of celery chopped. 2 cloves of garlic minced. We're going to use 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme leaves, 1 bay leaf if you have it. That's an optional step. I think it adds a nice flavor to it. 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. We have some kosher salt, some black pepper. I have some low sodium chicken broth, some cold water, and of course, some rice. And like I said, if you want to do noodles instead, I'll let you know when you can toss in the noodles instead of the rice. Okay, so the first thing we do is we actually go to our Instant Pot and we use the saute function. The saute function is in the bottom left corner when you're looking at it. And the saute function is really great because it allows you to do a lot of one-pot dishes. Really helps with your cleanup because I know specifically when I would use my crock pot in the past, a lot of times I'd have to like saute things and toss it into the crock pot before, but you don't have to do that anymore. With the Instant Pot, it's all kind of in there. All right, so the Instant Pot has 3 settings. You have less, normal, and more, and I'm actually going to grab the computer and show you guys what it looks like here. I'm going to be doing this throughout the program. I'm going to try not to make anybody motion sick, but I'll show you this. This is the saute button right here. Between the 3 settings right here. So less, normal, and more. So it's basically like low, medium, and high. Okay.
Aiden, we lost your audio when you walked over there.
So when it toggles between those 3 screens, those 3 lights, it's less, normal, and more, which is kind of like low, medium, and high. Okay. So yeah, just so you're aware, I'm going to tell you 2 things. Sometimes when I hold the computer a certain way, I cover up the microphone. So if I do, just tell me and I'll repeat it. I can't really help it when I'm trying to angle it. The other thing, I have 2 small children, so you might hear yelling, running. They might jump on camera. Heads up. This is a work from home environment. You never know what's going to happen. Hopefully they'll have clothes on. Okay, so we've set the saute, right? It's set to normal, which is kind of like our medium setting. We're going to give that about a minute to heat up. When it heats up, it actually switches from on to hot. Okay. So that basically just means that, the Instant Pot feels that it's the appropriate temperature for you to add your ingredients and start cooking. in all honesty, you can usually get away with adding it in a little bit before it even comes on. In my experience, I find that it gets hot fairly quickly. So that's just a heads up. Okay. All right. So the other thing I want to tell you about the Instant Pots that I kind of get a lot of questions about is people always ask me, you know, what's the difference? What are they? They're basically multi-cookers. And what a multi-cooker does, it's basically a kitchen appliance that has multiple functions. So an Instant Pot is a slow cooker. It has a saute function, which I've already discussed. You can pressure cook in it. You can make rice. You can make yogurt. You can use it for, let me see what else. There's a bunch of like presets on here, porridge. So it has a whole multitude of features, which is really great. Are there recipes for the soups? Yes, there are recipes for the soups. They are in the chat already, but I will add them again. No problem. So yeah, the other thing is that I get asked about a lot is, does it matter what type you buy? And just so you know, the Instant Pot is actually the manufacturer. So they are, at this point, almost synonymous with, you know, the name. Like a lot of people say like, oh, what kind of Instant Pot is that? But it's almost like a Xerox or a Kleenex at this point. Instant Pot is the manufacturer. They basically have the most brand recognition. That's kind of why, you know, I think people refer to them as such. But they're really multi-cookers, like I said. And there's a bunch of different manufacturers. Emerald makes one. Crock-Pot actually has one. It's called the Crock-Pot Express. There's one from, I think it's called Mealy. There's a Ninja one. So there's a whole bunch of different.
Even Pampered Chef jumped on the bandwagon and has one.
There you go, Pampered Chef. I see them on QVC sometimes too, like all different brands. So, all right. I'm just going to kind of hover my hand in the pot here. So it feels pretty warm. I'm going to go ahead and add my oil. I'm using, I said, about 2 tablespoons. And then I went ahead and took the liberty of chopping everything up ahead of time. I'm just going to give this a second. I'm going to put it in, and that's really our mirepoix. So we have our carrots, we have our celery, and we have our onions. So I'll give you a little look inside the pot, show you what it looks like in there. That's what it looks like. You can hear it sizzling. Just going to give it a stir. And we're going to let that cook for about 2 or 3 minutes. We just want the onions to get soft and translucent, and you know, the celery to soften up too. The carrots will get soft when we pressure cook it. You know, so they'll be pork tender once you're ready to eat the soup. Okay. All right. Excuse me. So after our vegetables soften up, what we're going to do is we're going to add in our garlic and our thyme, but that's going to take a couple minutes. So the next thing I'll kind of point out, you know, I like to walk through a lot of these things when we're doing these classes because not everybody has an Instant Pot. The other thing I get asked a lot is, are they hard to maintain? Are they hard to clean? In my experience, I don't think so. The inside is like a stainless steel pot, basically, just like you would have like a soup pot. They come in different sizes, 3 quart, 6 quart, 8 quart. They're really simple to set up. You basically just take this and you slide it right into this part, which is like where your electric casing is. And then you have your lid, right? So your lid has a little sealing ring in here. This is a silicone ring, this blue thing. It has a little valve in the back. This is called your vent valve. So you're either going to seal pressure inside or you're going to vent it and let all the steam out. It has a handle, so you can kind of twist it like that. And then it has a little button. It's actually called a float pin back here. So you can see it. And that helps to indicate when the pressure inside the pot has been sealed up and the pressure cooker is going on. Okay. All dishwasher safe. You can actually put the lid, even though it has like this plastic on the top shelf of your dishwasher. So, and like I said, in my experience, pretty easy to maintain. The outside part, I just kind of wipe down with like a stainless steel cleaner. All right. that smells good. I almost wish we had smell-o-vision so you guys could get a whiff of the onion and the celery and the carrots. I always enjoy when I'm cooking something and my wife walks in and she'll say, "Oh, it smells great. What is that?" I'm like, "It's just the onions. I haven't even started yet." But it really is a great smell. Okay. So these are starting to look pretty good. The next thing I'm going to do is toss in my garlic. And then I have that fresh thyme that I talked about earlier. So I took this from the garden, still have some left. Got it on there. You could use dried thyme if you had to. I would just use about a teaspoon if that's all you had available. All right. We're going to give that a minute to cook up. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and add in our bay leaf, our chicken breast, and our seasoning. So you basically just want to season your chicken breast with some salt and pepper. I kind of like to just put the breast in and then just sprinkle it on top. And then we're going to add in our broth, our rice, and our water. Okay.
Aiden, Kathleen wants to know what size Instant Pot you're using.
This is a 6. This is a 6, and this one down here is an 8. So the advice I like to give is if you're cooking for one, the 3-quart is probably okay. If you're cooking for 2, it's probably the 6-quart is what you're going to want to go with. I like the 6-quart for 2 because then you have your meal, and then you usually have like 1 or 2 leftovers. If you're cooking for 4, I'd probably say get the 8-quart. It's a little bit easier just to double up recipes that way. So that would be my my guide. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add in my chicken breast now. So I just have 3, like I said, skinless chicken breasts. Toss these in. All right, I have my salt and pepper. And I'm going to toss in my rice too. And here, I'll show you what it looks like before I actually put the liquid in, so you get an idea. That's what it kind of looks like now. And then we'll add in our stock or broth. You can use whichever you like, whatever you have available. And our cold water. So I have my 2 cups of cold water here. So I'm just using one of the stocks from the store, but I do like to make my own stock in here. It's one of the things that I think the Instant Pot's really great for. You can also see a lot of bone broth recipes out there. People make a lot of bone broth with the Instant Pot too. It's really popular with the keto diet and Whole30 because it has a lot of like collagens in it. So people will just have that as almost like a meal. But to do that, you can find a lot of recipes online. I actually don't have a stock recipe on my website, but I mean it's pretty standard. It's your aromatics, it's your onion, your carrot, some potato in there, celery, and then liquid, and then your discarded chicken parts you could throw in there, whether it be skins, fats, bones, whatever it might be. Sometimes if you get like if you roast a chicken or something like that, I would just save the carcass and I chuck it in there, and then pressure cook it for 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll have a ton of stock. When I'm doing this many classes, it's not really sustainable to keep making stock all the time. I just don't have it handy.
Aiden, I have 2 questions in the chat. One person asked if you can use chicken with the bone in for this.
Yeah, you could do that if you wanted to. You would just, so basically when we get to the next step, I'm going to cook the soup. I'm going to take the chicken breast out and then I'm going to shred it. Okay.
And also, are those chicken breasts frozen or fresh?
Those are defrosted. I just took them out of the refrigerator, the freezer last night. So they're defrosted. But if you wanted to do frozen, you could do frozen. You would cook it for longer though. So I think I have it for 8 minutes in my recipe. You would cook it for like 18. Okay. All right. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is actually put our lid on and we're going to set up our pressure cooker. So I put my lid on here. And what I'm going to do is this little valve that we talked about earlier, I'm going to turn it into the seal position, which is kind of like a right angle like that. Okay. So we're going to seal it. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to push pressure cook, which is down here. And we're going to set it for 8 minutes. So let me grab this. Looks like there's a plus sign and a minus sign.
Oh, you're covering the mic.
Sorry. Let me try again. Is that better? Any better?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay. So there's a plus sign and a minus sign.
Oh, now you went away.
That'll allow you to increase or decrease the time, excuse me. And what'll happen is then after you set the time, it's just going to say on. And a lot of times people get confused during this step because they think, I put in the time, why isn't it counting down? And what's actually happening is you have to incorporate some time for your pot to pressurize, is what they call it. So basically what happens is your liquid is going to start to boil. It's going to create steam. The steam is going to build and build and build inside your pot until it gets sealed up. And then ultimately you're going to create what they call a pressurized environment. Once you have that pressurized environment, the real benefit is that you can achieve temperatures for cooking that you couldn't achieve just on your stovetop. Like if you're boiling water, the hottest it can get is 100 degrees Celsius. If you have a pressurized environment or a pressure cooker, you can get up to 112 to 116 degrees Celsius. And that's where those quicker cook times come into play. So you can basically make something based on, the Instant Pot manual says up to 16 times faster because of that extra 12 to 16 degrees when you're cooking. Okay. But it takes, anywhere from 5 to like 18 minutes on the super long end for a pot to pressurize. And it really depends on what you're cooking. If you have something that's really dense, like dried black beans or any type of dried bean, or what else, like a really big piece of meat, like a pork butt or something like that, it's going to take a while for it to get up to temperature. If you have just like a cup of water in there and you're making like, just regular rice or something like that, it doesn't take very long, 5 minutes. So those are the two things to kind of factor in. And most recipes are pretty good about mentioning, how long it'll take for them to pressurize. Nobody's pots are exactly the same. So people say like, mine took 8 minutes, mine took 6 minutes. So just try to make sure that's calculated into your cook time. All right. Okay. So we're going to jump to our next thing. You want to say hi? This is Amelia.
Hi.
All right, that's my older one.
What's her name?
That's Amelia.
Okay.
Rose is, I think, watching TV. She's 2.
Marion, I think we can count Amelia in our attendance.
I like, my wife's a librarian, so I get it. You gotta make those stats look good.
That's right.
So let's grab this stuff for our black beans. Our black bean soup. Okay. So the next thing we're gonna do is the black bean soup. All right. And this one's a great one. I like spicy food. We generally try to eat spicy, and we love anything that has like a Southwest or like a Mexican kind of flair to it. So we like our black bean soup a lot, and all types of spicy bean dishes in my house. So what I use in this is 1 small red onion, which is diced. We have 3 cloves of garlic minced. I have half a bunch of cilantro, which I've chopped stems and leaves together. I took 1 red pepper and I diced it up. I have a tablespoon of cumin, tablespoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a little bit of kosher salt, a teaspoon's worth. We're using a bay leaf. We're using 2 teaspoons of oregano, 1 teaspoon of adobo from a can of chipotle and adobo, and I'll show you what that looks like in 1 second. 14 ounces of dry black beans, which is like 2 cups, 3 cups of vegetable broth, and a little extra water, and then the juice of 1 lime, and we'll salt it to taste. Okay, so grab this. All right, so if you've never used this is, I think it's probably backwards for you, but it says Chili's Chipotle.
No, it looks right.
Oh, it does? Okay, so you can find this in the international aisle, usually in your grocer. It's usually by where the Goya products are. And basically what it is it's like an adobo sauce, and they take the chilies and they rest them in there. And what you can do is you can use that adobo sauce in this recipe. And it's a really great, like, smoky heat that it'll bring to your black beans. So it's depending on your tolerance for heat, you can either like pull back or add to it. I would say maybe just do a little taste on your tongue before you go in. But I find when I do these programs, most people think like, obviously the reactions vary. When I'm making it for our family, we usually use 2 teaspoons. When I make it for the public, I usually use 1. But even some people give me feedback that that's too spicy for them. So I would definitely say give it a little taste. And if you are really adverse to spice, maybe start with like a half teaspoon or a 1/4 teaspoon just to be safe. And then the next time you make it, you can always kind of build up if you think it needs more.
Someone
Okay,
has
yeah.
written that they can't find vegetable broth in the grocery store. Seems
You can-
unusual to me.
Yeah. So I usually don't have much trouble finding it. It's usually in the same aisles with all the chicken stock or the beef broth or beef stock, all that stuff. So I would certainly ask the grocer, if they have it, and if so, where. The other option, I think they sell like the bouillon cubes for vegetable broth. You might be able to find those. And then if that runs out, you might have to just make your own. Not, which isn't terribly hard. That's kind of like an end of the week chore when you have a bunch of veggies that maybe you didn't get to that are starting to expire. You can just throw them all in a big pot and boil it out, and you'll get some vegetable broth. So that would be my suggestion. But next time you go, just ask. I mean, I think they'll probably have it somewhere, but it might just be a little tough to find.
They also sell better than bouillon in a jar,
Yes.
and that comes in veggie also. Like it's like just like a little scoop of like this gel liquid. It's awesome.
Yeah. I've used that. I like that a lot too. So good tip. Better than bouillon. Everybody check it out. Okay, so I actually took the liberty of starting the saute function before while I was yammering away about something else. And what I'm going to do now is add in my olive oil, and then I'm going to put in my red onion, my garlic, and my cilantro. All right. Cilantro and garlic. I'll give you guys a little look at this. Keep everybody's interest. I wish I could just get like a camera on my head, so every time I look down, you guys could like see what I was doing. All right, let me grab this here.
What is this? I was.
Hang on 1 second. I'm in the middle of a Zoom. I'm doing a Zoom
Oh,
program.
okay.
Wait, let me mute myself.
All right, so that is the cilantro and everything. Once we get it in there, excuse me, the onion, the garlic, and the cilantro stems. So we're going to leave that in there for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to throw in our red pepper. Very nice. Give me a second to get rid of some of this stuff here. Let me show you this. So once I got the chipotle and adobo, this is kind of what it looks like. See, it's kind of just like a dark, rich red looking paste. I know I have like really bright high hats here, but that's kind of what it looks like. And I'll try to cover it up. But yeah, it's really great. Even if you do like a marinade in the summer, if you wanted to do something like a little different, you can do like a chipotle flavored marinade, with chipotle lime, chipotle honey. Take a little bit of that, mix it with like a cup of lime juice, a little olive oil, a couple squirts of honey, and you have a really good marinade. Toss some chicken on the grill or some pork. Gives it a lot of great flavor. All right, I'm going to go ahead and toss in the red peppers here. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to tell you is when you're cooking beans, you have a couple different options, right? You can cook them dry, right? Which basically means you take them out of the bag, you toss them right into the pot. And they'll cook, but it's going to take a little bit longer than it would if you did a pre-soak. I prefer the pre-soak because it actually helps get a lot of the air and the gases out of the bean. So like if you've ever experienced a lot of bloating after you've had beans, it might be because they weren't pre-soaked. So this will help alleviate that. I actually got that tip from one of my vegan friends. I was like, I want to eat more, healthier vegan food. And I was like, but the beans, they kill me. He's like, you got to soak them. I was like, oh, now I'm learning. So that's a great tip. And the difference between cook time with this, so if you were using unsoaked beans, you're looking at a 30-minute cook with a 10-minute natural release. And I'll talk more about releases in a second. If you're using soaked beans, you're looking at like a 8-minute cook and a 10-minute natural release. So you're saving like 12 minutes off. I actually par cooked these before, so I already cooked them for about 10 minutes just to kind of help move the class along. I didn't want to keep everybody here all night waiting for the beans to cook. So I'm actually going to use just an 8-minute cook, and that should be more than enough. I'm not going to wait for the whole natural release. But the directions for the soaked versus the unsoaked are on the website, so you can kind of use that. Okay. The other thing I'll call out: different types of beans, different cook times. Really helpful to either use. You can use the library, and I'm sure you can grab an Instant Pot cookbook. A lot of the like introductory cookbooks have recommendations for all different types of pastas, beans, cuts of meat, bone in, bone out. Super helpful. There's also a book that comes with the Instant Pot. It's like a cooking guide with recommended times for each thing. So that's also super helpful. So it's like whether you're cooking like a pinto bean or a cannelli bean or a black bean, different cook times. All right. So this smells really good. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and add in our black beans and our broth, okay? So I'm going to put in my broth first, and I'm going to kind of scrape up anything that got stuck to the bottom. And like I said, I'm using 3 cups. And this is nothing fancy. This is just, the Swanson brand. Make sure nothing's stuck to the bottom here. Just like you would when you're cooking on your stovetop. And I'll go ahead and put in my beans. Since they are already cooked or par cooked, they've already absorbed a lot of the water. So like I said, it's 2 cups of dry. But since I've already, like I said, soaked them and cooked them a little bit, they're kind of bigger. So now they're probably like 3 cups. I got everything in here, which is good. And the next thing I'm going to do is add in all my seasonings. Okay. Got my cumin, chili, my oregano, my salt, my bay leaf. All right. And let's see if there's anything else. All right. Okay. I'm going to give it one more stir. I'm going to add in just a little bit more water. I want about an inch of water to be resting above the beans, okay? So, got this and you can see right now the beans basically around the surface, breaking water there. So I'll just add a little bit more, about 2 cups worth.
Okay, Aiden, whenever you take the computer over there, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay, okay. Is it better to just leave it up here? Do you want to see what's going on in there? I can always just repeat it. So basically what happened is the beans were kind of just right at the top there, breaking the surface level. So then what I did is I just added about 2 cups of water to kind of give myself about an inch, okay? All right. The next thing I'll do is put my lid on. I'll seal it. I'm going to hit pressure cook, high, 8 minutes, okay? And one of the things I'll also pull out is that when you're when you have to saute something first and then you have to switch to the pressure cook like we've been doing in a lot of our recipes this evening, it's important to remember to always hit cancel. When you hit cancel in between, it'll basically stop the saute function and it'll allow you to start your pressure cook function, okay? Otherwise, you're going to hit pressure cook and then nothing, you know, you won't be able to set the time and you're going to say, what's going on? Is this thing not working? So the trick is to always hit cancel, okay? Leave my line. I have a whole line here that I'm going to put in afterwards. Okay, so now on to the butternut squash soup. This is actually the one that I think people like the most whenever I do this class in person. So let me grab those ingredients. So for this one, let me just run down our recipe or list here. We're going to be using about a tablespoon of olive oil, 1 shallot diced. Well, we have 3 cloves of garlic mince. We have 4 leaves of sage that I've chopped up, green apple that I've diced, half a teaspoon of cumin, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 4 cups of chicken stock, 1 cup of cream, and about 2 pounds of cubed butternut squash. Okay. So I've got everything here. The only thing I don't have is my seasoning. I'm going to break that right now. All right, so I've already turned on my saute function. It's again, we're setting it to saute normal. I'm going to go ahead and add in my olive oil here. So that's going to take, you know, like I said, a couple seconds to heat up. For this one, I'm using a shallot. I don't know if you cook a lot with shallots. I like using them. They have like the sweetness of an onion, but they also kind of have that depth of flavor that you get from garlic. It's kind of like onion and garlic out together. And you know, for soups, it's really great. It's a really great alternative to using the onion. But if you don't have shallot, can't find one, you can always use an onion. It's not a big deal. Okay. So that being said, I'm just going to point out too, my pot down here, it should be sealed up any second now. I see the float pin has risen to the top. And what's going to happen is the timer is going to come on the screen now. So now it says 8 minutes on here. I know you guys can't see it. versus what it says on this one, where it just says on because that water is, the stock is just heating up now, starting to boil. But in a couple of minutes, this one will become pressurized as well. All right. So this one's on an 8-minute timer, so it should be done pretty much by the time we get all of our butternut squash soup in the pot and getting going here. So hopefully everything will time out nicely, which is always a big win for me. All right. Okay. All right. So I feel like our pot is hot enough to go ahead and add in our shallot, garlic, our apple, and our sage. And then we're going to cook these for about 2 or 3 minutes. So I have my apple, my shallot, my garlic, and the sage. That's another one. If you can't find fresh sage, you can certainly use dried sage. I would say like a third of a teaspoon would probably be okay. And then I have my butternut squash here. So got it cut up into about 1-inch cubes. You can actually, I see these a lot now, the pre-cut in the store. If you want to pay the extra couple dollars and you don't want to do it yourself, I don't blame you. It's a pain in the butt to break one of these down and strip the seeds out and skin it and everything. So yeah, that's understandable. I always like to say I have a quick meals class. You know, everybody's heard the saying, time is money. And it's truly, you know, never more true than when you're cooking. If you want to pay the extra dollar or two for something that's already chopped up, you just saved yourselves a couple minutes, especially if your knife skills aren't, you know, top notch. All right. Excuse me. So let me just grab my spoon and give this a stir. All right. So I thought I had set up all my seasoning already, but I forgot. So I'm going to go ahead and just set up my my cinnamon, my cumin, and my salt now, my pepper too. So I'm using a half a teaspoon of my cumin. And then we're also going to be using a half teaspoon of cinnamon. All right. Make sure you got the right lids back on. Nobody wants to grab their cinnamon and then realize it smells like cumin. That would not be a good experience. And then we just have our salt and our pepper here. All right, so I have about a quarter teaspoon of black pepper and then a teaspoon of salt. All right. Okay, I'm going to show you what it looks like, but I'm not going to talk. I'll talk when I come back. All right. So that's what it looks like inside. We've got about 4 minutes left on our chicken and rice soup. And so in the meantime, I'll go ahead and add in my seasoning. And I like to add in seasoning now because it's going to help bring out some of that flavor when it gets heated up. So after that, we'll go ahead and add in our butternut squash and our stock. I'm gonna go put in my my stock again, my chicken stock, 4 cups, so it's about 1 container. Perfect. We'll add in our butternut squash. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our lid on, and we're going to pressure cook this one again. And this one is also going to be 8 minutes. So this is like the 8-8-8 class. Everything's 8 minutes. All right, so cancel because I'm turning off my saute function. Pressure cook. Put the timer to 8 minutes. And we're just going to wait for a few minutes while our chicken soup finishes. And then when we're taking that out and shredding our chicken, hopefully our black beans should be getting going, or at least already in a cooking process by then. It looks like the float pin is starting to move a little bit, so it should be another like 5 minutes probably for that one to get going. Okay, let me clean up a little. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions while we're waiting for our soup to finish, please ask. Do my best to answer them. If not, I can give you a little bit of background about how I got into the Instant Pot world.
I have a quick question. Do you have to puree the butternut squash soup after it's done? Or
Yeah, so you do have to puree it. I use a hand blender. That way I don't have to transfer it out of there. If you don't have an immersion blender, you can certainly just wait for it to cool and do it in a regular blender. I actually find that when you do it in the regular blender, or if you have if you're lucky enough to have like a Vitamix or something like that, it's ultra smooth and soapy. I think with the hand blender, even though it's more convenient, it just never comes out as smooth.
right, well, my family actually likes chunks, which I find weird. Like the last time I made butternut squash soup, I didn't put any chunks in it. So the next time, after that, the next time I made it, I saved some apples and I put like chunks of apples in it. They're so weird. I'm like, why do you want the chunks? But they did.
Texture, I think texture in a lot of these soups is definitely an element that's missing. Sometimes I use nuts or seeds with my butternut squash just to add like something,
right?
Kind of so you could chew on, like you could do like a lightly fried almond. If you have like almond slices, you could fry those like 1 minute in there, scoop them out, and they're like crispy and they're a nice compliment. Pumpkin seeds, people do that too, or like sunflower seeds or something like that. Or croutons, you can always toss some croutons and crackers in there. And
nope, they want that.
They just want the chunks.
All right, weirdos.
Yeah.
Aiden, Liz has a question. Liz, I was wondering if you could unmute yourself and maybe ask your question out loud.
Sure. Hi, Aiden.
Hi, Liz.
How are you?
I'm fine.
A recipe when I first got the Instapot that required putting in shredded cheese, and I had a very bad experience. The cheese burnt on the bottom. I got an error message.
Yeah.
And I have stayed away from using cheese in my recipes. So any tips on using cheese?
Yeah, so it's situation by situation usually with the cheese. So if I'm making like most dishes that I make, the cheese goes in after. So like if I'm making a pasta dish, I'll put in the cheese after I take the lid off and at the end when the pasta is done cooking. or like I make a burrito bowl where I put in like some cheese with some rice and chicken and everything else. Same situation. I have made a couple. I've tried a few cheese dips, like beer cheese dips and things like that for various sporting events or parties, and I've had similar experiences where the cheese just burns. Um, Usually, it's a liquid ratio thing. You usually just need to make sure there's enough liquid in there to melt the cheese without it getting stuck on the bottom. Or conversely, like I said, after the fact, it's going to be so hot, whatever you make in there, that putting it in is going to melt it in a second anyway, you know? So yeah, the burn message is a tricky one. Besides the cheese, the number one reason you get it is because there's not enough liquid in there. And sometimes you get it from sugars, like if you have like I've seen people make like pulled chicken or pulled pork in there and they just dump the barbecue sauce in. You actually have to add some liquid, otherwise that sugary barbecue sauce is just going to burn and get stuck to the bottom. Same thing with like tomato sauce. Like if you just got tomato sauce out of the jar, pour it in there, it's the same experience. So liquid is most likely the answer.
Very much.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm gonna bring the computer over the Instant Pot to show you something right now. Okay, I'm not gonna talk until I come back. I moderate myself. Okay. So if you looked at the screen there, it said L003, right? You're probably wondering, what is L? Why does it show up on my screen? So L stands for lapsed. And what's going to happen is, I'm just releasing the pressure now. When your pressure cook completes, you're going to get that L is going to show up on your screen. And it's going to say L000. Timer's going to beep. That means whatever amount of time you entered to cook for is completed, right? Then it's going to start counting up. It's going to say 001, 002, 003, like you just saw, up until infinity, until you stop, you basically hit cancel. And what that means is L stands for lapsed, and that's how much time has lapsed since your pressure cook is finished. And the reason that this is important is because there's a lot of recipes that call for a timed natural release. And basically what that means is there's three kinds of releases. There's a quick release, which means Instant Pot gets to 0, it beeps, you go over there, you turn that valve in the back that I showed you earlier, and you vent all the steam and you release it. That's a quick release. Stops the food cooking immediately, and you can open up the pot and do whatever else you have to do. Option 2, natural release. Full natural release means you don't do anything. You just let the pressure inside the pot return to its state naturally. Could take 5 minutes, could take 25 minutes. Depends on what you have in there. Option 3 is a timed natural release, which is kind of what we just talked about. So you'll see recipes that'll say 5-minute natural release, 3-minute natural release. In the instance of our soup, I think my recipe calls for a 2-minute natural release. So when it says L002, 2 minutes has gone by since your cook is finished, and you can go over and release the rest of the pressure from the pot. So it sounds complicated. It's not really complicated. You just have to watch for the timer and understand the 3 different types of releases. The more things you cook in here, the more familiar you'll become with it. I think it took me probably making each one of those different types of releases 2 or 3 times, and I kind of have the hang of it. It doesn't take long. Needless to say, our pressure has been released completely from our chicken and rice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open the lid up, and we're going to take the chicken out. Okay. Other thing to call out, our beans are at 8 minutes now, so those are going to start cooking. They are in the process of cooking. Excuse me. Over here. Okay, so All right, so now I have these nice chicken breasts. They're all cooked up here, right? I'm gonna let them sit for about a minute or so, and then I'm gonna go ahead and trim them. So I'm looking at the time now. I apologize in advance. We're probably gonna run like 10 minutes over. Just so you're aware, okay? So our chicken is here. I'm gonna let it cool for a second. It's really too hot for me to handle at this exact moment. But when I'm ready, I'm gonna use my favorite tool, which is my chicken shredding claw. You can get these on Amazon or Bed Bath & Beyond, Walmart, whatever. I entered it in from the search as a meat shredding claw, and this is what comes up with. Usually get two, but it really does help shred things super quick. All right. If you didn't want to shred, if you like, I know some people have told me that they kind of like to have like cubes in there. You could just wait 2 minutes and then cube it up and toss it back in too. I'm a shred fan. So that looks good. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and grab my immersion blender. Which is right here. And get that set up while our chicken's cooling off. So another thing I'll give you kind of a tip for, if you're ever doing like a shredded chicken dish, maybe a pulled chicken like we talked about earlier, like in a barbecue sauce or something like that, you should definitely try to let it rest. I found that when I shred it too early, a lot of those juices will run out of it and it'll get a little dry. I mean, when you're doing the soup, it's not as big of a deal because you're kind of just putting it back into the liquid, but it's definitely noticeable on some of those other dishes. So I have my immersion blender. This is one of the huge industrial ones, but I have a regular one. That's kind of what I started using when I first began cooking. All right. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to hold it to one side and I'm going to pull on the other like this. See it? I'll try to do it a little like this. Yeah, my arm's in the way. You're never going to see it. I'll show you the other result. So we got two done. If you don't have a claw like this, you could always use 2 forks. This actually might be enough. Go ahead and put this right back in here. There we go. All right, so I actually only use 2 of these for the time being. I'm pretty sure that's going to be enough. And I'm also going to got my bay leaf. I'm going to pull that out. There we go. Let me show you guys what it looks like in here. We got a little bit of the rice. So we've got some of the rice, some of the carrot. Now, I told you earlier, if you wanted to make chicken noodle, I would tell you how to do that. So at the end, after it cooks for 8 minutes, we let it sit for 2 more. After we do that release, what I would do is I would take whatever type of noodle you're using. If you're using egg noodle, that's kind of what I like to use. You could toss it right in there, put the lid back on, and just let it sit for about 5 minutes, and they'll be cooked. Egg noodles don't take too long. If you wanted to use something different, I've seen people use like the rollatini or spiral pasta. What you can do is actually hit saute, and it'll bring the soup back to a boil. You could toss it in there, and you could cook it just like you would regular pasta for a couple minutes inside. And you can even like leave your chicken on the side while it's cooling and shredding it. You could do it that way too. Another thing I'll mention, if you wanted to, you could use a whole cup of rice, and then you get like a really thick, almost like you would get with a like a gumbo or something like that. It's like a real thick consistency of your soup, and it's just like rice and chicken. It's almost like a hearty, it's almost like a hearty dish comparatively. Instead of a soup, it's almost like a meal. So that's another way to do it. So we got 1 minute left on our black bean soup. So when that finishes, I'm going to release it, and I'm actually going to blend up a little bit of it, and that's going to help make our soup a little thicker. Instead of using like a thickener like cornstarch or flour or like masa, we're going to basically use just some of the black beans to help thicken it. Okay. That's how I like doing it. I've gotten some feedback that people kind of like it to be a little soupier and get all the beans in there. Maybe that's how Marion, your family would like it with some chunks in there. But I don't do the whole thing. I just do a couple of a couple pushes of the button in there just to get a little bit of it mixed in, and then to help, like I said, to help thicken it up a little once it cools down. Okay. So it's at 0. I'm going to release it. The other thing that's important, I use my lime, and my lime is going to help add a little bit of acid to it. Okay. The other thing that's cool, black bean soup, you can garnish it with so many different things. You can use like tortilla strips. You can use avocado if you wanted. You could put a little sour cream in there if you felt like it. You could put some red onion and cilantro on top. You can really go a whole bunch of different ways, and it just has a great flavor. And the fact that you can add all those different components to it kind of lets you customize it however you like it, and add those different textures that you might like, or those flavors that you might be more interested in. All right. So because we had all those beans in there, it usually does take about 1 minute to 2 minutes for this one to release. If they were straight dry beans, it would take even longer. You'd be looking at like 5 to 6 minutes probably. But since I kind of par cooked these earlier, it shouldn't be that bad. And if you're not familiar with the term par cook, it's basically you cook it almost all the way. It's a restaurant term. Yeah, if you've ever wondered how they get food out so fast in a restaurant or a steak or something like that, it's probably because they cook it. They par cook them and then they finish them up right when you order them. All right. Okay. So let's grab our spoon. Do this a quick stir. Add in our lime. All right, so we got 1 lime in there. Like I said, I'm going to give it a couple of pulses. This guy right here. Oops. Helps when you plug it in. There you go. All right. Stir it again, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So another tip too, if you ever make a soup and you feel like it's a little too liquidy, you can use that saute function like I talked about earlier. And again, it'll just heat that water up or that liquid up, and you can boil it off and reduce it by however much you need to. Reduce it by a quarter, half, 5 minutes. That'll help. In the case of this, it'll help thicken it a little bit because I just blended up those beans. But it'll also help cook off any excess liquid that we might not want in there. Do this, and I'll grab a spoon so you guys can see what it looks like. Just walk it over to you. All right, so I'm gonna try to angle this a little and not get anything on the keyboard. You see all the steam coming off there. We got some of that cilantro. You could see the onion. No red pepper in this spoonful, but it's in there. I'll actually do the same. Oops. We got here's some of the chicken. You can see the nice chicken chunks in there, carrots, looks really good. So our butternut squash has about 2 minutes left. I'll blend that up real quick and I'll show you guys what it looks like. What brand is that? That's a good question. It is Chef Built. That is the brand. So I actually got this at Restaurant Depot, but I'm sure you could find one online that would be, same brand. I'm just gonna rinse off all that black bean goodness so I could use it again for the butternut squash. Those are two flavors I probably wouldn't want to mix together in this instance. All right.
Aiden, that the chunk besides the beans that was in that spoonful of soup, was that onion?
Yeah, there was onion in there, cilantro. I think the onion was actually resting on top of the beans, so probably.
Oh, okay.
Probably
So
looked
it was
bigger than it actually.
Pretty
Yeah.
big chunks of onion then.
I mean, they're diced. They're not huge, but I think just because, like I said, it was sitting on top of.
Okay.
It looked bigger than it was. That's always the challenge, trying to show like what it looks like when it's finished. Especially with the soup, because it's like, I don't know. I can show you what it looks like inside, but you just see like a big thing of dark water when you look at the black bean soup. And you're probably wondering, this guy could have made anything.
Sure wish we could smell it. I bet it smells great in there.
Oh yeah, it's funny because it's such like a hodgepodge of odors. It's like the black beans and the chicken, and then the butternut squash. All right, so I'm gonna release this. So that'll take about a minute, and like I said, I'll blend this up, and I think by about like 8:12 we should be done. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cream ready. If you don't use cream, or you're trying to make a vegetarian version of this or a vegan version of this, substitute out the chicken stock for vegetable stock. Instead of using heavy cream, you can use, I like cashew milk in my soups. I feel like its consistency is the closest I've seen to cream. A few people have told me I should try oat milk. I have not done that yet, but I will probably do it in the future. But those are some alternatives if you want to go with no dairy. Okay. So our flow pin is dropped. I'm going to go ahead and just go right into blending, and I'm going to add my cream. All right, so I'm going to add in my cream. I'm going to give it one more blend. You got night-night? Say night-night to Rosie. Right? Night-night. Say bye-bye.
Night, night, Rosie.
Say night-night. Night-night.
Judy.
Okay. So let me show you one more. That's what it looks like. Let me grab a spoonful for you. This is like the big reveal, right? And then this is, it's so bright, it's hard to get on camera here. But it's like a real, like yellowish golden color. It's hard for me to get a good shot of it, but you can see the little specks of like the cumin and the nutmeg in there, which are really nice, and the cinnamon especially adds just like a nice layer of like flavor to it, especially this time of year. It's kind of like everything that you're tasting in October and November, kind of in a soup. So it's one of my favorites, and when I do this one in class, my dinky, yeah.
Yes, I have a just whatever from Bed Bath and Beyond immersion blender. That's
I have like the $20 Walmart one, which was
Yeah.
the first one I got. But this one I think, yeah, I got at the store. It was like $60, but it was well worth it.
yes. Your class would be a lot longer if it.
Yes. All
Well,
right.
Aiden, we'd like to thank you very much. This was just terrific. We're all drooling, at least I am.
I am totally drooling.
I just wanted to let everyone know that we've been invited back to Aiden's Kitchen 2 weeks from tonight on November 18th.
Mhm.
The Bayville and Oyster Bay Library are sponsoring another Instant Pot class where we're going to be making, where Aiden is going to be making holiday side dishes. Which is mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, Brussels sprouts au gratin, and sweet potato casserole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yum. So if you haven't signed up, you can go to either the Bayville website or the Oyster Bay Library website and sign up, and we'll be back again with Aiden in 2 weeks.
Looking forward to it.
We thank you very much, Aiden, and we enjoyed that your daughters were there with you.
Yeah. This was actually a good night. They were pretty well behaved.
All right, we'll see how they are in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Check back in 2, and I'll send over the video to you. Okay.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.